As many Australians know, the term Gonski refers to a particular funding model that applies to Australian schools in general, whereby most are guaranteed a certain level of funding, but those who cater to the most disadvantaged children of various backgrounds are provided with additional sources of funding. So what is the issue? Well, in Australia, at the moment, we are in an election year. The Labor Party has promised to fund these final 2 years of 2017 and 18 of the Gonski model, and this is particularly significant as this is the time where the most amount of money will flow into the education system. The funding is necessary for student academic achievement. PISA data used to determine the relationship between academic performance and resources across rural-urban schools shows that low academic achievement in these areas are due to teacher shortages and unequal distribution of resources. Most recently, the Liberal Party has proposed to stop the final 2 years of Gonski funding to public schools. The reform focus was on empowering schools by giving state schools greater autonomy of their budgets and selection of resources and staff. While this reform was overturned, the Liberal Party has yet not stated what it will do if re-elected, but at the moment it is believed that it is unlikely to provide this funding. If the Gonski funding ceases, this means that teacher shortages and resources will be unobtainable to rural-urban areas, and that families from these areas will not be well placed for parental choice. I have very broad sympathy with Gonski for 2 reasons. Firstly, because Gonski is the best thing that we have on the table at the moment. This isn't in any way likely to begin to address the questions of educational inequality. And the second is because it is made extremely clear through interviews with teachers, parents and students, as well as through unequivocal data, that the government state schools educate a disproportionate number of disadvantaged students and therefore are particularly deserving of this additional funding. Parents have spoken about the pressing need to finish what the Gonski review started. In my interviews with parents, many offered accounts about how Gonski funding will help their children enjoy their rights to an education and how some fear that politicians will have the power over these decisions and how they do not care for such rights. I'll start with Nadine from New South Wales. She said, "I am waiting to see how my young daughter will be educated. When she begins school, will she be one of the hundreds and thousands of children who receive barely adequate education in a rural public school simply because her parents cannot afford the affluent private alternative? Or will she be cared for in a system designed to bring out the best in every child? It seems that the former will be most likely, as the politicians who have the power over such decisions show little care or imagination for the future of their country or the children who grow up to lead it." Katie from Victoria spoke of her disgust about the inequity of state school funding. As Katie says, "I am disgusted that funding is allocated on a per-student system, so that a well-off private school takes money from the pot that would otherwise go to poorer schools. I will say that public schools all around the country are making the best of the resources they have." Jane from my home state of South Australia spoke about how further funding would change her child's future. She said, "My 7-year-old goes to a public school in a low SES area. Many of the children at this school come from disadvantaged backgrounds. The school already does amazing things, but could do so much more with a fairer funding model that truly does help those most in need. This will not just benefit those children, it's a benefit to the whole of society to support its most vulnerable members." Samantha from New South Wales spoke about the importance of providing extra support for rural schools, as recommended by the Gonski Review. She says, "I live in a rural area in mid-North Coast. The local government schools is the heart of the community in a disadvantaged area. Our school has only 20 children. When it comes to staffing, the school is only eligible for 1 full-time teacher principal and 1 part-time teacher. Could you imagine being the principal, doing all the myriad tasks that the job entails, as well as being a full-time teacher for K-2? And when the other teacher is not there, teaching 20 children at 7 different levels of education? I am full admiration for the principal of our school, but how long can a person keep this up for?" Tamara from South Australia spoke about the importance of funding, especially for disabilities. She says, "I am a teacher and also a parent of 3 boys, 2 with special needs. In my work and at home, I see the need for more education resources on a daily basis. I have experience in primary and secondary, both private and public, high SES and low. Wherever you go, you see the same thing. Kids with additional needs need more resources, more time, more support, and it all costs money. Gonski's plan to provide more to all and based on need is so simple in its effectiveness. All we really need to do is make education a priority. It's the future of our nation and of the world. Scott says, I am in Year 9 at a high school in Victoria. My school is under-resourced and teachers are trying their hardest with what little they have. Teachers need better pay. Schools need more targeted funding and more of it. Don't put our education at risk. Don't trash our futures. These personal accounts of inequality in education show just how neoliberal reforms have cascaded into schools and have made it difficult for students to access resources for quality education. The experiences of these citizens show just how imbalances are maintained through neoliberal ideologies, controlling beliefs used in those power, which cascades into schools to control populations. The push for privatisation of schools has created a problem for students from lower SES areas. Overall, public schools enroll 65.2% of students. With this overall figure, public schools enroll 85% of ATSE students, with 83% living in rural and remote communities. Under neoliberal reforms, there is no financial incentive for non-government schools to provide educational services, as there is cost with zero profit. If Liberal are re-elected in 2016, their proposal to stop federal funding to public schools could mean a decline in remote public schools and resources to lower SES urban schools.